This week on Viewpoints.
People should not be politicized. People are not chess pieces. They deserve the benefits that they're entitled to receive.
How the longest government shutdown in history affected 42 million Americans. Then,
I think that's when you then saw pet owners go, I want more, and I want to be with my pet more and more often. I want to take him more places. And then millennials have taken it on steroids and just exploded.
The unconditional love we have for our pets. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth this week on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints. Last month, the longest government shutdown in U.S. history came to an end. For 43 days, all non-essential federal services were halted. Tens of thousands of essential employees, like air traffic controllers, worked without pay. Making matters worse, about 1 in 8 Americans was at risk of going hungry. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, known as SNAP, had a severe funding shortfall that couldn't be dealt with until the government reopened. While a judge ordered the government to provide the necessary funding, state agencies still struggled to distribute payments amid the chaos. For people like Jessica Bollinger, a case manager at a homeless shelter in North Carolina, this meant seeing benefits suddenly cut in half.
With me and my 2 children, we were receiving $318, $317, something like that. And I would typically get meats and vegetables with that. With my daughter being over 5, I don't receive WIC or anything. I never really received WIC. I didn't apply for it. Knowing that I could get it, I didn't. But so, just buying the meats and healthy snacks and things like that for my children. So with the government shutdown, I received, I think it was $98 this past Friday. And so that's gone. I went ahead and got meats for the next 2 weeks so that we can have dinner every night. And then juice and water is what I stocked up on this past weekend.
Bollinger also shifted money she'd typically use for other bills like rent and electricity to cover groceries. Luckily, her landlord agreed to let her pay half of her rent at the beginning of November and the other half at the end of the month. For her and many other single parents across the country, SNAP makes it possible to hold down a job, pay rent, and provide healthy, nutritious meals for children.
With being a single mother and making a living and paying all our bills, so the food's nutrition benefits really help out whenever it's a single household. I know in my experience, that's been a lifesaver at many times.
And she's not the only one to feel this way. Throughout the shutdown, millions of families like hers were forced to make the same difficult choices. And these are hard-working Americans, many of which work full-time jobs. In fact, according to Gina Plattanino, SNAP director at the Food Research and Action Center, the majority of SNAP recipients are children, people with disabilities, and adults who fall below the poverty line.
There's over 42 million Americans who are in SNAP. Majority of SNAP users are children, followed by older adults, followed by people with disability. The main reason that people enter the SNAP program for a temporary time is because they have lost their jobs, their wages have been reduced, or they have a family member to take care of. Most people have a household member that is working. They are just not making enough, particularly when you look at families with children. These households are making less than $1,100 a month, right? In order for you to be eligible for SNAP, you have to be within very low levels of the poverty level. These are individuals who are incredibly vulnerable and who at a time need to depend on this benefit in order for them to be able to meet their basic needs. Because when you are paying 70 to 80% of your income on shelter expenses, it leaves very little money for all the other things that you must take care of.
Plattanino says there are often misconceptions about who receives SNAP benefits and why. To qualify for the program in the first place, applicants must pass a lengthy screening process. If approved, there are strict rules dictating what the funds can be used for.
It is a very rigorous process to apply for SNAP. People do a very lengthy application, followed by an interview, followed by a requirement of proving the information that you have given, Once all of that is verified, individuals are giving their benefit amount, which is less than $6 a day. Most people don't get the maximum amount. An average 60% do not. And that benefit is put in something called an EBT card. The card is like a debit card where individuals can utilize it at participating retailers. Not at every store. The retailer has to be participating, and we have about 260,000 retailers across the U.S. Those cards can only be utilized when funds have been placed there by the government and can only be utilized to purchase foods. No hygiene products, no baby diapers, nothing, just food.
Unfortunately, many people don't fully understand how SNAP works, and Bollinger has witnessed this firsthand. In her experience, some have assumed recipients use their benefits to buy junk food and other non-essential items.
Misconceptions. I mean, I've heard that people use it to buy sodas and candy. And the main thing that I depend on when I do have foods and nutrition benefits is I depend on that to buy my child's birthday cake. Like, that's going to be for a lot of low income families, is they really depend on the foods and nutrition to buy their cakes for their children for their birthdays.
Another misconception Bollinger hears is that SNAP recipients sell their benefits for profit. Not only has she never heard of anyone doing this, but it's illegal and would result in disqualification from the program. And for her, this program means much more than putting food on the table. It's also given her kids typical childhood experiences and memories. Before the shutdown ended, she was especially worried about how it would affect this year's Thanksgiving and Christmas.
The kids, they'll get picky and they just want pizza. So it's something that we do and have fun, like making the pizza. And so I don't buy the frozen pizzas. We buy the dough and we buy the cheese and the pepperonis, and we make our own dough. It's a bag of dough. You just add water to it. But it's just something fun that we do as a family. Cookies at Christmas time, Easter, and then especially November. November is kind of a hard month not to get your foods and nutrition benefits, because we're going to have a bunch of people that's relying on that for Thanksgiving dinner. And so that's when using the food banks and utilizing church community is going to play a big hand in that this month.
And food banks did play a huge role in helping families get through the shutdown. However, Plattanino notes that for every meal a food pantry provides, SNAP provides 9 meals. Given the program's reach, she says it's necessary that SNAP remains supported and fully funded. And research shows that when it does more than just temporarily ease hunger. It strengthens local economies, uplifts communities, and sets children up for greater success.
SNAP brings triple the money into the local economies, up to $1.80, right? If it wasn't for these individuals utilizing SNAP and utilizing in their local retailers, many of these local retailers will go under. That money translates into people being hired because, cashiers, delivery trucks, property taxes. It brings into the national economy over $100 billion. People on SNAP are less likely to go to the ER, are less likely to be long-term hospitalized. Children who receive SNAP benefits are less likely as adults to need these services and are more likely to graduate. Moms who have this program are less likely to suffer from depression, have better birth outcomes, have better resiliency in terms of dietary diseases. And the biggest, I think, myth or lack of understanding is that if individuals were being paid enough livable wages, we wouldn't be in this situation.
For Bollinger, she not only works full-time, but her job is dedicated to supporting unhoused people in her community. If people doing this critical work can't afford to eat, what does that say about our country's future?
People should not be politicized. People are not chess pieces. They deserve the benefits that they're entitled to receive. So the best thing that people can do is just keep calling out how incredibly important this program is to the livelihoods, to the economy, to our communities, and that it should be protected.
Though the government shutdown has ended, it will take time for all 42 million SNAP recipients to receive their benefits. To learn more about this topic and our guests, Jessica Bollinger and Gina Plattanino, visit viewpointsradio.org. For more behind the scenes, check out Viewpoints Radio on X, Facebook, and Instagram. This segment was written and produced by Grace Galante. Our executive producer is Amira Zaveri. Studio production by Jason Dickey. I'm Gary Price.
Coming up, almost a third of Americans own a pet. Are you missing out? When Viewpoints returns. Walk into nearly any American home today, and chances are you'll meet a pet. According to the American Pet Products Association, roughly 94 million U.S. households now share their home with at least one animal, a number that reflects not just ownership, but an unbreakable bond. And that connection is stronger than ever. A 2025 report by the North American Pet Health Insurance Association found that 97% of pet owners consider their animals full-fledged members of the family.
No country in the world overall is more deeply invested in pets, whether it's ownership or money spent or time spent, than the U.S. Canada's close, very similar. The U.K. or Great Britain, very similar.
That's Mark Cushing, the founder and CEO of the Animal Policy Group and the author of the book Pet Nation. He breaks down the two most popular pets in America. You might be surprised that it's an even split.
Dogs and cats in the U.S. are about the same numbers. That may surprise people, but dogs are the public face of pet ownership in what I call Pet Nation for obvious reasons. You know, cats don't roam free and always make it back home. So there are countries that value the cat more. There's countries that value birds more. South America, my brother's wife's from Nicaragua. People were, and Argentina is another good example. They were as likely to have a parrot or an exotic tropical bird as they were a dog or a cat.
The modern pet industry isn't just about organic food or premium toys anymore. There's a whole niche dedicated to every aspect of ownership, from holistic treatments to luxury daycare. According to the American Pet Products Association, Americans are expected to spend $157 billion on their pets by the end of 2025. Roughly $67 billion of that goes toward food and treats alone, with vet care and health products making up a growing part of the bill.
Dog walkers in New York can make up to $200,000 a year in Manhattan. That's pretty good income. Your job is to walk dogs. But that's, how do you have a large dog in an Upper East Side apartment and you work during the day? You've got to do something with it, right? So it just makes sense. And we've seen an explosion of new people. There's, probably now close to 2 million people working in the pet industry.
For many, pets aren't just animals, they're family. Millennials and Gen Z together now own nearly 2/3 of all pets. And many see caring for a dog or cat as a natural fit with their lifestyle. Dan Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of Pups Pet Club in Chicago, says this younger demographic makes up the core of his business.
They love their dogs so much. They treat their dogs more like family than any prior generation that I had come into contact with, including my own. So I really do admire and appreciate them. They want the best for them. I think they tend to focus on not necessarily a particular service, but they focus on whatever is going to improve the quality of their dog's life and their life collectively.
Pups Pet Club helps owners with dog training, daycare, and veterinary care. Currently, across the U.S., there's still a widespread shortage of veterinarians. As demand continues to grow, many practices simply can't keep up.
They've sent a message to the pet supply and pet service and medical world as follows. We want the same quality and scale of things for our pets as we have for ourselves. Healthcare, nutritional choices, you name it, accessories. But particularly in the healthcare arena, that's the case. And what we see right now are veterinary clinics woefully understaffed. There aren't enough veterinarians. There aren't enough vet nurses. And you have a surging demand from millennials for care. And they want something that veterinarians weren't trained to do. They want advice. They'll pay for it, but they want guidance on how do I take care of my cat or dog? How do I manage their health care? Because I manage my own health care. So can you tell me how? Well, they just can't get that. And telemedicine's been slow to become popular with veterinarians. It's changing now, but it's been slow.
While telemedicine doesn't work in all scenarios, Cushing says it's one more tool in the toolbox and can be handy in certain situations. Another growing sector in pet health is the use of natural supplements like CBD.
CBD is just one of 118 cannabinoids, but it gets the most attention. And as you would expect, it has followed the legalization of recreational marijuana. So you had pet owners, baby boomers, Gen Xers, that have used marijuana in their lives and found it a stress relief or a pain relief, and they like that more than opioids as a medication. And it's not surprising, and that's really what happened. They began to say, well, if it works for us, and we're going to go on an 8-hour drive, and we know our dog or our cat hates being in the car, and cats particularly, it can be difficult. Not every cat, but many can. And what will a veterinarian do? They'll give you gabapentin. So they'll prescribe gabapentin. But a lot of people are uncomfortable with that, and they began to say, well, wait a second. I wonder if the same thing would work for us.
Looking ahead as more Americans head into retirement, experts predict that the demand for cats and dogs will only grow. So if you're looking to add a dog or cat to your home sometime soon, make sure it's the right fit for your lifestyle. A new animal is a big commitment, but for most owners, the joy and companionship are worth the challenge. Try to always adopt from a local shelter. If you do choose to go through a dog breeder, Cushing says do your research to make sure the business is treating their dogs well and follows basic standards for responsible breeding. Ethical businesses should be able to show proof of health screenings and certifications and safe sanitary living conditions for all animals.
The best thing to do is go see the breeder. If your dog's being delivered to you from 1,500 miles away, you need some evidence of how they raised that dog, I think. The medical records, some video, the breeders haven't been transparent, and that's their own fault. So people wonder what goes on behind those hedgerows when they hear dogs yelping and wondering what's going on there. And I think demand information and ideally demand access. And there are breeders that will accommodate that. And there could be ones in your area too.
If you're still on the fence about becoming an owner, Rubenstein recommends fostering a pet first to do a trial run. He fosters dogs himself through a local organization in Chicago.
I feel like I'm just a part of that organization and doing my part and to find, dogs great homes and to give them a great home while, they're in that process. So they're just so sweet and so loving and so appreciative and so smart. So you just got to give them a chance. And sometimes, instead of being cooped up in a shelter or at a rescue, it's better to be in someone's home. So if you can foster a dog, it gives them a better chance of acclimating to someone's home because then they're used to that environment and they're not going to be as, let's call it, temperamental when they do finally migrate to some new person's home.
Pets have a way of finding the quiet corners of our lives and filling them with meaning. No matter how much the world shifts around us, the relationship between people and their animals remains simple and constant. It's also a reminder that love doesn't always need words to be felt. To find out more about the pet industry, pet adoption, and our guests, Mark Cushing and Dan Rubenstein, visit viewpointsradio.org. You can learn more about Pups Pet Club by going to pupspetclub.com. This segment was written and produced by Amir Zaveri. Our studio manager is Jason Dickey. I'm Marty Peterson.
Viewpoints returns in just a moment.
Welcome to Culture Crash, where we examine what's new and old in entertainment. Jennifer Lawrence and Robert Pattinson are, of course, most well known for their forays into big franchise entertainment. Lawrence was Katniss in The Hunger Games and Mystique in a handful of X-Men movies, while Pattinson was Edward in Twilight, Cedric in Harry Potter, and currently stars as Bruce Wayne and Batman in Matt Reeves' Batverse. And yet, the latest movie from Lawrence and Pattinson is a quiet domestic drama, a chaotic descent into postpartum depression and maybe even psychosis. It's called Die My Love, and it's directed by Lynn Ramsey, who made a name for herself making psychological drama thrillers like We Need to Talk About Kevin and You Were Never Really Here. Die My Love is a viscerally upsetting and intense portrayal of a real phenomenon that has split critics and audiences, garnering a positive reaction out of the Cannes Film Festival, but falling flat with fans who seem to have balked at the movie's depiction of violence and its bleak tone. Despite it all, though, the central performances are absolutely transfixing. Specifically, Lawrence's work as a young mother dealing with the common but under-discussed reality of postpartum difficulties has her deservedly square in the middle of awards races that are really starting to take shape. Die My Love isn't going to be a movie for everybody. It's patient and slow, full of messy details and bleak reality. But for people who are willing to go there with Ramsey's latest film, it will certainly serve up plenty to think over for days afterward. I'm Evan Rook.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.